Welcome to another episode of The Cynical Writer. Today I want to talk about what has inspired me to write. Now, many things have inspired me to write. The works of Edgar Allan Poe has inspired me to write. The works of Shakespeare has inspired me to write. But there's one person above all others who has just captured my imagination. And that person is Jesus Christ. Now, some of you may find that surprising. I mean, a lot of people don't really think of Christ as being a storyteller, but he was. Christ told stories in the form of parables, and each parable had a very deep meaning. And the thing is, the words of Christ will last far beyond you and I. The words of Christ are eternal, because he is eternal. Christ is the only thing in the entire universe that is eternal. And Christ understood better than anyone that the way to convey a message was to not communicate directly. The way that Christ wanted to communicate was to hide the message underneath things that on the surface might not even seem related, but deep down they actually were related. Because sometimes telling the literal truth won't be effective. Sometimes the best way to convey the truth is through metaphors. And Christ was a master at doing that. And that's why his parables are eternal. That's why they will never fade. They will never get old, because they are timeless. You can apply them to every situation. And Christ, above all other storytellers, knew how to affect your heart, because he was also speaking to you. Christ speaks to all people in all nations, because he created you, because Christ is the human embodiment of God. That is who he is. And as God himself, he knows what your weaknesses are. He knows your fears. He knows your wants. He knows your desires. And that's why he can touch you in a way that no one else can, emotionally and spiritually. But there are a lot of people who are resistant to that, because we are living in a fallen world where people don't want to experience the spiritual things. They would rather focus on the material things, because when we view the material world, it's very easy to think that nothing else exists, that the material world is all there is. Because if that's true, then we really don't have to be held accountable. We can basically live as we wish. However, if there is something beyond that, then we can, on some level, be held accountable to a higher power, to something that is eternal. And that's why the words of Christ will last far beyond you. They'll last far beyond me. They'll last far beyond the writings of Shakespeare, far beyond the writings of Edgar Allan Poe. And that's why Christ inspires me so much, because in my writings, I try to convey messages through parables. I try to spread the gospel through parables. And sometimes that means not mentioning Christ directly. Sometimes that means getting people to think about the message, and sometimes they may come to a completely different conclusion. But that's the great thing about literature, is that it can touch people in different ways. However, that doesn't mean there isn't an objective meaning. But you have to work hard sometimes in order to find it. And I try to emulate Christ in that way. And so that Christ's words have truly inspired me to do great things. He has been such an influence in my life. And I appreciate that so much. And the thing is, you can have the same relationship if you truly want it. Christ can guide you in your writings, in the way that you go about communicating with others, if you will allow Him, if you will put aside your pride and allow Christ to dwell within you. And there's a verse in the Bible that's very powerful, and I'm going to read it to you because I believe it basically sums up what the Gospels are all about. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Now that, more than any other verse, basically sums up what the Gospels are about. That if you truly believe in Him, you can have life. And that can inspire your creativity, because when you believe in Christ, everything in your life will improve. Perhaps not right away. You're going to have to work at it. But if you will just trust Him in every way, trust that He will do the right thing, then you can have a beautiful, loving relationship with the Creator of the universe. Just think about that. You can have a loving relationship with the Creator of the universe, and He can inspire you to do great things. And I hope that you will take this message seriously. And I know I sound a bit like a preacher here, because I am a bit like a preacher, because all disciples of Christ are preachers. We are called to preach the gospel to every plane within the earth. And the thing is, with the invention of the internet, it is possible to do that. We have been given a wonderful gift of communicating the truth to people, and we shouldn't squander it. And so I hope you will take this message to heart, because I know I did when I started reading the Bible. So I hope you have enjoyed my speech for today, and I hope you'll take my words seriously, because it truly is a serious thing, because your salvation is on the line. Because if you reject Christ's love, then nothing else ultimately will satisfy you. You can try to satisfy yourself with pleasure, with sex, with food, and other things, but that won't last in the end. And even if you try to write without Christ, even that will be meaningless, because ultimately, once you finish a book or a story, that you might be pleased with your success for a time, but eventually you'll get bored, and then you'll want to write something else or do something else. And so, I'm not saying that having goals isn't important, but goals in and of themselves will never satisfy you. Only Christ, at the end of the day, can satisfy you. And He can inspire, again, for you to do great things. So, I hope you have enjoyed my speech for today. Next week, I will return with a different topic, and until then, goodbye.